In Costa Rica, we have a wildlife conservation project, including with monkeys and parrots, but also with turtles. We also have renovations of schools project there, and that can be combined with, well, you name it. It's all customized. Each trip is individually crafted for each client.
Financial independence,
freedom,
financial picture,
independent financially,
financial future,
financial freedom and wealth,
financial independence.
Get your fill, financial independence and long life. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Get Your Fill, Financial Independence and Long Life, where we explore ways to achieve those two goals. Wonderful, interesting people come on to help us. And that's why I'm very happy today that Christopher Hill is with us. He is the founder of luxury philanthropic travel brands, Hands Up Holidays, and Impact Destinations. He serves his majority US-based clients from New Zealand, where he lives with his wife, 2 boys, and dog. Welcome, Christopher. Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks so much for having me, Christine.
So I know you're just waking up, so you don't have to feel like, yeah, it's the wee hours of the morning there. But tell us about the definition, I guess, of philanthropic travel. Like, what is that? Where it is? Explain to us exactly like what we're talking about. Give us some framework.
Yeah, sure. So I would define philanthropic travel as travel that uses finances, i.e. money, to make an impact. And you mentioned that I have 2 travel brands, and they both deploy that philanthropic travel in related, similar but different ways. And so with regards to, we'll start off with the impact destinations, which with that one, it's sort of a pure philanthropic idea in that it's the traveler's donation, which will enable the experts in that destination to do what they do best. However, that also will unlock a unique experience for the traveler. So for example, a couple of examples, one would be in South Africa on a safari day, guests can fund and get to witness a rhino relocation from a reserve that's facing a lot of poaching to a protected reserve, better protected reserve in Botswana. So this is where the guests actually go into the helicopter with the veterinarian while he's preparing to dart the rhino. And then once the rhino's darted, land the helicopter and spend some time with a sedated rhino before seeing it get lifted onto the container and then airlifted off to Botswana. So really, it's about sort of leaving a legacy and being able to say, I saved the life of a rhino whilst on safari. And then another example in the sort of humanitarian sphere would be in Australia. Guests can fund a scholarship for a promising Aboriginal art student. And in return for that scholarship, they then get to spend time with a established Aboriginal artist from whom they can commission their own work of art. So that's the twist on philanthropic travel that Impact Destinations has. And then Hands Up Holidays is what I describe as a philanthro volunteering model, in that it's the funds that our clients bring, which is what makes the impact, but they still get involved in a hands-on way. And so this is sort of best illustrated really with probably a building project, whereby it might be building a house for a family, or might be helping to build a classroom at a school. But the idea is that the funds for the materials and actually employing local people to do most of the work comes from our clients, who then the local experts will do most of the work and leave the finishing touches really for our clients to do. And that's where the magic happens from the client's perspective. So the benefit they bring is the funds, but the benefit they get is the engagement with the local people and the hearing of their stories and sharing laughs and actually just appreciation of another culture, and the great feeling it is of being able to hand over, say, the house to the family that you've been helping alongside.
Yeah. And I think that's a little bit closer to a model that when you say philanthropic travel, I think a lot of people think of something like the Peace Corps or something like that, where you're going to go there and you're going to work in that environment. Or even I think things like Doctors Without Borders, I think that's similar, like they're paying for all their own expenses and things like that. They're not being paid to go and help wherever it is that they're going. So tell me how you got interested and involved in this. It's really fascinating and very interesting and fun and yeah, once in a lifetime type of way of traveling.
Yeah. Well, I started my career. I did a law degree and a business degree, and then ended up getting a job in investment banking in London, England. And it was amazing, working for one of the American investment banks, and it learned a lot. And in my 6th year in London, I took a trip to South Africa. And on that trip, in addition to going on safari and exploring the wonders of Cape Town and the winelands and so on, I also helped to build a house for a family in one of the slums just outside of Cape Town. And so for me, that really enriched the whole travel experience, added sort of two dimensions to travel that had previously really been lacking. One was, like I mentioned, I actually got to engage with the local people and hear their stories and get that interaction that in all the travel I'd done leading up to that just hadn't happened.
Yeah.
And then secondly, it just felt great to actually make a difference in the lives of the family that we were helping alongside. So I got thinking, yeah, well, I have learned some good business skills. Why don't I put into something I find a bit more meaningful and fulfilling, and create something which makes it easy for people to experience what I've just experienced, plus have a great luxury vacation. So the idea really from the get-go has been that it's this combination of luxury with leisure time with an element of giving back.
Interesting. Where are some of the destinations that you've brought people?
Our Well, we cover our sort of most popular areas are through Asia, Africa, and Latin America.
Hmm.
And you touched on that most of our clients, in fact, the vast majority of our clients are American, sort of 90% of our clients are American. And and there's either sort of mostly it's Central America is probably our most popular. So Costa Rica, Belize, Guatemala are really popular. I think, just being pretty close to home. And then and in those destinations, I'll just quickly give you the example of what can be done there. In Costa Rica, we have a wildlife conservation project, including with monkeys and parrots, but also with turtles. We also have renovations of schools project there, and that can be combined with, well, you name it, it's all customized. Each trip is individually crafted for each client, but the popular things in Costa Rica are, you probably know them. So it's, whitewater rafting and um, surfing and snorkeling and zip lining um, and then in Belize, guests can build install a eco-friendly stove for a family. And these stoves are fantastic in that they they replace the open flames that are traditionally used in village huts, and those flames are a fire hazard, particularly with young kids running around. So burn incidents are reduced, and these new stoves have a chimney to expel the fumes, which means that respiratory problems are lowered, such as asthma, and they're much more fuel efficient. So from an environmental perspective, they're a win as well. And these are great because they can be completed in just 2 or 3 days. And that combines really nicely with chocolate making and also, snorkeling in the Belize Barrier Reef, and again, zip lining, and the Mayan ruins are, really popular in Belize as well.
Yeah.
And and then we offer house building in Guatemala. And then I'd say probably the next most popular would be Africa, our African projects, where you do get that element, that combination typically of the safari and then the hands-on helping. So that can be in Kenya, that can be building classrooms in Tanzania. It is building houses for teachers so that they can be near to the schools. And in South Africa, I touched on the rhino relocation. We also do have some rhino tagging, which is the hands-on projects as well.
So I have a lot of thoughts and questions, but going back to something that you said a little bit earlier about crafting it to each individual person. So this is not like a group tour where everybody's going to be, sitting around patting the rhino. This is a something that you sit down with the travelers, like maybe just a couple or a few people who are going to be going, and then decide what kind of experience they want.
Exactly, Christine. Each trip is customized, tailored for that particular client. And that can be an individual, it could be a couple, or most of our clients on the Hands Up Holidays side anyway are families.
Yeah.
So that could be, typically 4 or 5 people, but also it can be an extended family. But it's whatever size that you're booking for is what the
It's just your
itinerary
party.
is crafted for. Yeah.
Interesting. So now I want to bring it back because a lot of our listeners are entrepreneurs or people who are what I call entrepreneurs. They've got their 9 to 5 and they're kind of wishing that they had something that was a little more fulfilling. And I feel like that's what you've done, right? You've taken a passion, you've taken an experience that you had, and then you've said, wow, okay, I'm going to make this a business, first of all, right? And do you go on these trips? I'm assuming there's some amount of travel that has to happen for you, right, in order to do this successfully.
Yeah, it's pretty tough. It's pretty tough having to do it. Yeah. I I got that idea. That trip to South Africa was back in 2002. And and then I took a year out to do some more study, and I did that in Vancouver in Canada.
Mhm.
And then for the next 2 years, so 2004 and 5, I traveled the world and built relationships with communities all over the world. And that continues now, absolutely.
Yeah.
A bit less so now. I'm not quite in that position, particularly with young kids, to take a couple of years out and go traveling. Um, but it's of course still happens. I don't tend to go on these trips with our
With the
clients,
guests.
just
Yeah.
because that'd be a little bit weird if I was
Yeah.
hanging around with a
Right.
family, for instance. But I do go on the reconnaissance trips to sort out the logistics of the destinations. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask you about next is forging these connections, finding these projects that are going to be appropriate for a certain clientele. So like, okay, at any given time, these would seem to be, some of them would seem to be time sensitive projects. If you don't have somebody that wants to do that, then you're just not going to be able to be involved in it, I guess. But how does that all, thinking like a menu sort of in a way, right? If people are like, okay, if you want tropical and you want hands-on and you want nature or you want, like building or whatever, like tell me how that whole process works. Like imagine I'm coming to you at this moment and I say, okay, I want to have an amazing, vacation that I'm going to remember for the rest of my life. What happens next?
Yeah, well, if you came to me just in this sort of in the context of a conversation, then I would probably be essentially trying to get the information that we also get from our website if someone clicks on the Plan My Trip form. So it's seeking to understand things like um, your the way you'd like to help and where you're interested in going, the time of year, and the sort of activities you'd like to do in your leisure time. And so then it's really finding the match for those things. So it could be that you say you want you want to travel in July, and it's really important that you have good weather, so it's not the rainy season, and you want to help with um well, let's say it's a building project. You want to help in that way, but you're not too fussed on the destination itself. and you want to travel for 8 days, just for example. So then it would be, thinking, then my mind clicks on, okay, so they want good weather. So places like uh, Costa Rica and Belize probably wouldn't be good for July because it's the rainy season there. So we've got to probably look at, um, uh, well, further afield. And so if it was a building project in July, Kenya springs to mind because then it's also the wildebeest migration time, so you get that experience combined with good weather, and then also we do offer building project in Kenya, so it's that sort of thing. Obviously that's just purely hypothetical, but just it's an uncovering of information about what the interests are, and then in that case it might also be a little bit more nuanced. Like you might say, "Oh, I really I really want to do whitewater rafting." So then I think, well, actually, then Kenya might not be such a good fit, but Zambia would be because you can go whitewater rafting around on the Zambezi, and we also offer house building there. So it's just a case of just understanding really what the client want to do and finding what the best fit is.
So this clearly involved a lot of travel in the beginning for you. I mean, not just like traveling world, but really like getting into you weren't a tourist in any of these towns when you were doing your travels, right? You really had to dig down to all the, to be able to create this basically catalog of all the different things that are available and all the different ways. I mean, it's cool. It just seems like a dream job for a lot of people who love to travel and love to help people.
It
I mean,
it you're so right, Christine. It has been, and it is continues to be a dream job. Yeah.
yeah. Do you find people going on doing this multiple times? Like once they do it once, they're like, yeah, okay, we're hooked. Every year we're going to do some kind of an amazing trip like
Yeah,
this.
we do. We do. I think especially either sort of two categories. We've had a number of honeymooners that have gone on their honeymoon with us and then have made it a regular thing. And then even more so with families. We find that particularly when their children are in the sort of the sweet spot of sort of 10 to 15, we get multiple bookings when their children are in that age range. Yeah.
Yeah, I can think that that would be really a really strong bonding experience for families, for sure. It seems like a really great way to get everybody right out of the box, right out of the computer, get right out of the phone. Just get out there and live.
Yeah, you got it. You got it. And when I was setting it up, like as I say, back in that 2003 and sorry, 4 and 5 time, we launched in 2006. And at that point, I had young professionals in mind as our sort of main target market, sort of, I guess, age sort of 25 to 35, let's say, roughly.
Yeah.
And however, right from the get-go, we were getting bookings from families, and families weren't on my radar at all. Back then, I didn't have kids of my own back then, and it just didn't occur to me that they'd want to be booking. But I mean, you identified it. When we started asking them, they'd say things like, "Yeah, we are looking for a great family bonding experience," or they'd say, "Our kids come from pretty privileged backgrounds, and we really want them to appreciate how fortunate they are."
Yeah.
And this really resonated with me. And so over time, we have started to not exclusively, but certainly focus primarily on that family market.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like a really good demographic and people who can truly appreciate what's happening out there. Not that a young professional couldn't, like anyone wouldn't have an amazing
Sure.
time, but
Yeah.
kids just don't necessarily have any kind of um, a way of understanding, right? What it's really like to be in a different economic situation. And, like you might see a poor person, but that's nothing like going to a country where people are sleeping on, mats on the dirt floor or whatever. I mean, it's just a completely different way outside of most people's range of understanding.
Yeah, it is. And when you are out there is when I think, things like um, empathy and gratitude are best learnt on the field, in the field, so to speak. Yeah.
Absolutely. What do you feel like was I guess when I think about people who have made this type of a life change, right? You just went from corporate London, working in an investment bank, which is sort of the anti travel the world as a bohemian sort of a business person. Which not, I'm not saying you traveled as a bohemian, but right, that whole idea of just like being out there in the world and just exploring the world and learning about people and things like that. What do you think changed in you? Was there, I mean, was it just this trip was so catalytic, cataclysmic? I don't know, that's not the right word, but like, was that the impetus for this, or was something going on? I mean, I feel like there had to be a sea change. Anyone who could be happy in an investment bank is not necessarily the same mindset, in my opinion, as the person who's going to be doing this sort of thing. So talk me through like,
Yeah, that's a really perceptive question, Christine. Yeah, I think I I really did enjoy my time in banking, but at the same time, they certainly got their pound of flesh. And so at that point, and 6 years into it, I was somewhat burnt out. And and so I ended up taking that year out to do some more study. But yeah, I think it really was that trip in South Africa, which was catalytic or transformational anyway, sufficiently so that it really did, um, yeah, it completely changed things for me. But maybe thinking about it on my feet a little bit more, um, I I had arranged for my employer to travel for about 9 months before starting work for them. This is straight after college, and and so I traveled through Australia and Africa, Europe, and a bit of the US. And on that trip, that was kind of bohemian style, certainly, young college traveler,
yeah,
and I did that in my mindset of arranging it with the employer. It was like to go travel, see the world, and then get travel out of my system. Um,
that didn't
and
work.
then go back, actually, just then go and settle into corporate life. But it didn't. It really didn't. It really just sparked it for me. So really, from that, but even before starting into banking, there's this love of travel, and so it's that seed was already planted, and then overlaying that with um, the give back dimension really just made it meaningful and fulfilling for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So back to the, I know I'm jumping around. That's the way my brain works, but getting back to, thinking about a person who has this passion, not necessarily the same passion that you have, but a passion about something that they feel like, but then they think, well, no one else is doing this, or it's just my passion. It could never be a real job, right? I mean, what advice would you give to someone who's sort of in that mindset? They're like, well, yes, I do love doing XYZ, but how can I make a living doing that, right? I'm listening to my family and friends, and they're saying, you're nuts, you can't do that, right? How would you,
Mm,
what advice would you give to someone in that situation?
mm. I would say that if no one else is doing it, that could be a good thing.
Right?
Absolutely. You've identified an opportunity, and obviously we're talking just in the ether right now without anything tangible. But I I was fortunate. I'd been able to save a fair amount of money, and I was didn't have a mortgage to worry about when I started things, and certainly
Mhm.
didn't have a family, and so the risks from my perspective were fairly limited. I just
Yeah.
thought I'd give it a go. So obviously, we're talking hypothetically.
Yeah.
Someone may be in that situation, and then it's great. But if they do have, a family or a mortgage to pay or something, then that does change the dynamics. So my advice in that situation would be, you know, try the try small and do it moonlighting style.
Yeah, it's a
Think of it as
side
a
hustle kind
side
of
gig
thing.
and just
Yeah.
start small and see where it ends up really.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you develop it, right?
Mm.
Did you have any naysayers in your life at the time when you were starting this?
I don't think I did. Um, No, I really can't think of anyone who was a naysayer. There was even, kind of the opposite. My colleagues from investment banking were investors into the business.
Oh, nice.
So, really supportive of it. Family was supportive. I mean, there were people who gave me advice. The closest I would say to a naysayer would be I was straight after that year of study where this idea really took root. Um, I was going to launch with just offering South Africa, basically similar trip to what I'd done, safari plus house building plus sightseeing in Cape Town, essentially. But I got some advice from a family friend who was working in the travel industry who said, in order to come across as more credible, recommend getting more destinations. And so I took that advice and then spent those 2 years traveling to get up. And we launched with about 21 destinations, I think, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say it was a naysayer, but he gave it, advice at that time, which I heeded, and certainly delayed our launch for a couple of years, but I think for the best.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it certainly seemed like I really feel that you've created a dream job for yourself, like I said before. It just seems like, okay, these are all the things I love, and I'm just going to figure out how to put them all together and make a living doing that.
Yeah, you nailed it, Christine.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So, what would somebody do? So, I guess it sounds like to build your own trip, you would just go to the website there's and do it, right?
Yeah. I mean, I would hope it's fairly user friendly, and fairly prominently positioned are these, buttons that says "Plan my trip." And if you click on that,
Seems
then
pretty
it
easy.
just takes you through just information gathering. It's sort of what we just talked about earlier.
Yeah.
And then I handle all inquiries that come through, and so would, personally, be the person who would be curating and crafting the itinerary.
Fun. So tell us about the trip to Honduras.
Yeah, so Honduras is a new destination that we're literally moments away from going live with, and it's uh crafted for each person, but the service component there is helping in a after schools education program, and so it's a good sort of entry level way into one of these trips, because you're sort of during most of the day you're out there snorkeling or diving or traveling around the island, and then for a few hours in the late afternoon you're helping as a reading partner, for example, at a well, in this literacy project that's going on. So it's yeah it's I would say for beginners it's a great one.
So how about language? I mean, all these different countries have different languages. How do you navigate that with your guests so that they get the most out of the experience?
Mm. Yeah, another great question. Well, one one key thing is that we always use local guides. Part of our ethos is to take a holistic approach to a trip. So, just quickly on that, in addition to the service component, we touched briefly on luxury. The idea is also that we lead with eco luxury, sustainable luxury properties, hotels to stay at, and then also in terms of the restaurants, we seek out those that are organic and source their food locally, and also we employ local guides, and so those guides are they speak their local language, but plus they're fluent in English as well, so they can assist with say interactions in the market, or um, maybe with uh, and also in the volunteering site. And then in terms of uh, language barriers, say if the project is a teaching one, then it's typically you're helping with teaching English. or being a reading partner in the English language, if that's the language that you speak, which for almost all our clients it is. And so the guides are there on hand in a situation. Let's take the Roatan project where it's Spanish speaking, and so the guide is there as well to oversee and help with translations as well, if anything comes up during that literacy instruction.
Interesting. So, Christopher, I've loved you've opened my mind in a new way, and I'm really excited about this. It's very cool, and I love what you're doing. Is there anything that you wish I would have asked you, or anything that we didn't touch on that you really want to make sure people walk away with?
I think we've covered it really. I think you've asked me some great comprehensive questions. Just to flesh out that because each trip is customized, it's easy to. I mean, one thing I guess to add is that the trip length is obviously something that's customizable and is entirely up to the client. And within that, the number of days that is spent on the service project is also customizable as well. So it can be, let's take, an 8-day trip. Typically of that, 2 to 3 days is spent on the service component, and then the rest of it is leisure according to each client's preferences.
Yeah. What's the longest trip you've planned for someone?
We were fortunate last year to work with a family that was traveling for a year. She had been part of a business that got sold, and so so the mother, I should say, and so she was in a great position in terms of financially to be able to travel for a year with their family, and so we were able to help them out with that. That was an incredible privilege.
Oh, that must have been a blast for you to help them plan that.
Yeah.
Maybe a few of your preferences got inserted into that trip a little bit.
Sure, yes.
Awesome. Well, Christopher, thank you so much for being with us today. Listeners, if you want to find out more about this, creating a luxury, unbelievable, imaginable trip for yourself, the link to the website is in the show notes. But Christopher, will you just give it to everybody in case they just can't wait to look at the show notes?
Yeah, so there's two. There's handsupholidays.com and impactdestination.com.
Excellent. Excellent. So thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun.
It's been a blast. Thanks, Christine.
And thank you, listener, for listening. Share this episode with a couple people who you think might be adventuresome and might really appreciate creating a vacation like none they've ever experienced before. And be sure to join us next week.